Climate Hive, What Do You Solve? A little over a year ago, we interviewed Scott Wharton from Tandem PV, and he promised us that he was going to open a factory in Fremont, California. We didn't believe him, but he's done it. And we're super excited because today we're going to go see Scott and we're going to walk through the doors of his factory and we're going to see what he's putting down at Tandem PV in Fremont. All right, here at Tandem PV, super excited to be with Scott Wharton and to see the new factory in Fremont, California. So, Scott, thank you so much for meeting with us today. And Mike sends his regards. He couldn't make it for the interview, but he was very excited to learn about the factory. So, at what point did you realize that this is a real thing and out of the lab and into commercialization and really developing this company?
It's probably two things. So one is we started getting some really good durability results about a year and a half ago. One of our panels eventually was out for 18 months in the field, even though it was still early and we knew we were going to get better durability data. And then secondly, we were just seeing really good internal testing that were showing that some of our panels could get to 1% degradation per year. So at that time, our average was a lot worse, but we saw that there were some outliers that had the potential to do that. And we thought, all right, we're going to make a lot more progress since then. And there's always a danger as an entrepreneur, like, do you wait until it's better or do you go faster? I think in this time, we decided that we were going to raise money, Series A, build this whole factory that we have around here. And I'm actually feeling really good about the decision in retrospect because we're now seeing less than 1% degradation per year. We've made 10x improvement on the durability. And I think everything's come together with the tools, the funding, the customer demand. So timing is really difficult as an entrepreneur. I think we're kind of done pretty well so far. Phase, then there'll be the next phase, of course.
Yeah. Well, and clearly this isn't your first rodeo, but how is launching this different than some of the projects you've done in the past? Like, what's that been like for you?
So this is my fifth startup scale up in a row. We talked about this. I'm a startup junkie. And I've done most of my work in the telecom and video conferencing space. So my last job was at Logitech, where I built $1 billion business on video conferencing hardware with Zoom, Microsoft, Google. So I would say there, launched 200 hardware products and worked with manufacturing, like ran the manufacturing operations, but I never built a factory. So that was a little scary.
This is your first factory?
The first one I built from scratch. So this is, I didn't know if we could do it. I'm really blessed with having a great team knows how to do it, knows how to run these things. So I think that was a big risk factor. I think we've shown that we retired that risk. It's factory's here, it's working, we're churning out products now on the line, and we built our first prototype in January. So I told the team in January, deadline is by the end of January, make the prototype work. And on January 30th, on a Friday night, at 11:55 p.m., the entire team was here, which is really saying something. And the first prototype came off the line and it actually worked pretty well. So ever since then, we've basically just been dialing in our processes to get them as good or better than R&D. And we're pretty far along on the journey. We're not quite there yet, but feeling very confident that we're going to hit it sometime in the near future.
And I want to talk to you about like the path forward looks like and what becomes of this factory and commercialization. I wanted to just ask you a little bit about the technology itself. And you were talking about durability. And can you give some context to that? Like, what does that mean to be at less than % durability? And why is that a problem for people that aren't familiar with perovskites?
So there are really three things you need to do to make a product that is commercially viable. One, you have to have an efficiency that is reasonably better than silicon. Because if it's worse, you're like, why would I bother? Like, it sucks. So I think we recently announced, and it was in press, we hit 30.4%
efficiency.
On a panel, not a cell. It wasn't on a large size, it was on the R&D size, but it's still big enough that it's a proxy for what you can do. I think over 30% is way better than what you get. I think the average in the US now is about 22%. So silicon's still improving, but at a slow rate. So I think we've knocked that down. Second thing is, this is where most people fall down. You can make something in the lab and it's got the efficiency, but the durability sucks. It falls apart. Now, perovskites tend to fall apart in nature. They just degrade fast. But by the way, a history lesson, so did silicon 70 years ago. It wasn't always rock solid. It just took 70 years to really get that way. Perovskites are now almost there, a dozen years. So there's clearly a path that will continue to get better, and we already see that. But less than 1% a year, why is that important? Because it basically allows you to get this industry standard warranty of 25 years or 30 years to 80%. So if you can't do that, you just can't sell.
Right.
And I think this is where really we shine. We've got, I would argue, the best durability and efficiency at the same time. Some people may have a little bit better efficiency in the lab, but it's not durable. Some people have shown some durability, but a really poor efficiency. We can do both. And then the third thing is you need to be able to make it as products. So it's academically, who cares if you can make something in the lab?
Yeah.
Like, Can you manufacture it? Can you repeat it? This is really what the purpose of this factory is it's not to have high volume. It's to show, can we make a large product, which we've already shown, and now we're in the process of selling. Can we make it in a repeatable way where you can sell it? I mean, we're pretty close there. You know, there are some people in the industry saying, perovskites are 5 years away. Maybe that's true for the industry as a whole, but it's not true for us. We're going to start shipping products this year, commercially.
Commercial products this year.
And then our plan is that we would raise money to build a bigger factory that would have high volume economics in 2028. So it's not that far away.
Now, who are some of the, like, who are you shipping to? Like, who are going to be the first? You're working with utilities, as I understand it?
We primarily sell to utility scale customers, independent power producers, or IPPs. That's our focus. And I think we've gotten really good product market fit. We've signed up LOIs from a good majority of the large ones. We really want to buy our product, partly because higher efficiency is worth a lot of money to them in terms of saving on labor, land. We've done some studies that show it's between 2.5 and 4.5 cents per increase in efficiency.
Okay.
So we're almost to a point now where we're saving almost all of the money now is actually it's in the labor of the land, these other things. So we can actually charge a premium and be cheaper for our customers. So obviously they're really excited about that. They're like,
yeah,
when this stuff works, we want as much of it as we can get.
Right. And so your initial foray, is it pilots? Is that how it will work? Is it when you go this year?
The goal of it this year is to have market pilots to prove out the technology. So we've shown that it works in the We've shown that we have some great outdoor data, smaller scale. We're now showing that we have the prototypes inside. Now we want to put them outside. That's proof of the pudding, right? Get the data and then go through the bankability process, get your hearing boards. That is really the purpose of why we built this factory at this scale.
Yeah.
To achieve that.
So we're in the factory now, and I think there's this really significant moment in history, which I'd like to just explore with you too.
Yeah.
You know, with growing AI data centers, I was just at Charles Impact, and it's all like the discussion of like, how do you make things sustainably, and how do we make a sustainable planet? You're very optimistic about like that and the things we can solve. But standing here in this factory in Fremont, California, like, what does this mean to energy for folks in this country? What does this mean in terms of a corner we might turn that's really positive?
I'd say there's a bunch of things happening in the world right now. So one is solar is actually winning. I think most people still don't know that. Like the majority of new energy in the not just in the world, but in the United States, solar and some batteries, you add it up, it's about 90%. Coal is like nothing and shrinking. Gas is actually very small. Nuclear is almost nothing new. So the majority of new energy is solar batteries. I think that's optimistic, and it's not winning because of people are environmentalists, it's winning because of economics. Most of the new solar is being deployed in states that the president won, in Texas,
right,
and Mississippi, and Alabama, and Arizona. So they're not deploying it for ideological reasons. They're deploying it because it's cheaper and better.
Yeah, exactly.
At the same time, reading about the El Nino effect, and look at what happened in France. 115 Fahrenheit yesterday, which is insane. So as much as solar is doing, I think we need to speed it up and we need to be cheaper. So part of our mission of the company is to speed up the adoption of solar, but not do it by appealing to people only on environmentalism. That's a feature. Make it better and cheaper, which is what we're doing. And then the last part is, how do we show that Americans can do manufacturing here? Like, we can't get all of our future energy from China. I think it's untenable. I think most people agree with that. So I think part of what we're proud is, how do we show how Americans can do advanced manufacturing and be competitive on technology and costs? That's what we're showing that we're doing here. And I think it's important and we're excited about that. I think that is the context. Speed it up and do it here.
Got it. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about doing something like this. What are the challenges? Like, what's been sort of the most difficult process of getting to this point with this factory?
Well, there are a lot of challenges. I knew coming into this role with wide eyes open that solar was not easy. I'm hearing the stories about the solar coaster. I could have done a lot of other jobs that were easier, but I thought that this was really important thing to do. A fun problem to solve. I would say the question you have of figuring out the right timing to move from smaller scale to larger scale is a challenge. Always assembling the right team and getting the right people. I think that the hardest thing is actually, I think there's a perception out there that Americans can't do manufacturing, that China has won everything, and that we can't possibly compete. I think what we're showing is this complete bullshit. But I think part of it is, and also there's a perception that the IRA was repealed. Most people don't know that all the manufacturing credits were maintained not only by the Democrats, but by the Republicans. So it's still the same credits until 2032. I think there's a lot of just misinformation out there. So raising money is never easy, especially in a world where all the money's going to AI. That's probably been the hardest challenge, but part of it is just based on a lot of lack of information. I think as we educate people and we demonstrate do and show them our not only great technology, but economics. And people are really excited about it. I think it should get easier from here on in, but it hasn't been the easiest thing. It also doesn't help that you have an administration that says lots of crazy stuff about renewables that we all know about.
What's like what is something that you think people don't have a good grasp on in terms of what Tandem PV is doing, but like perovskite, this technology? What's something that you think people don't quite understand well when they're looking into it?
I think a lot of it is the timing. Like I said, there was so Roth is an investment bank that covers the space, and they had sent an email out saying, "Hey, this stuff won't be ready until the 2030s." There were some answers that came back from a bunch of people in the industry, and I think the right answer is maybe on average it might be that late, but I think there are some players like us that will have it at earlier. As you can imagine, not everyone is equal performance. So I think that's number one. We just address some of the things on the regulatory and policy side. I mean, even tariffs going up, they've actually been good because it creates an environment for manufacturers like us to thrive in the United States. And then I think people don't realize the value quite of efficiency and the impact that it has on the costs of independent power producers. With the panels becoming so inexpensive right now, like I said, almost all of the costs now have shifted to labor, land, and other things. So by having a higher efficiency panel, you actually provide the cheapest solution. I think most of the people know who are watching this. Lowest cost in energy wins in electrons. So we're actually in a weird position that it's not only not a green premium, but it's the cheapest solution. So if you compare it against coal, unfinanceable, it's not going to be around, and it's too expensive. Natural gas is a good bridge, but good luck getting a natural gas turbine in the next 5 years. They're sold out. And even then, you got to get a pipeline getting to your project. Good luck with that too. Nuclear, there's a lot of hype around that, but it's probably not, a lot of it's not going to be ready until the 2030s. So when people are now talking about speed to power, I think solar and batteries are the best solution. I would probably add one thing to that. There are a lot of people who say that solar is not a baseline power because we all know, the sun is not shining at night.
Right.
But batteries have made so much progress. I think it's another thing people don't know. Like even in the last few years, they've come down by 40%. So you're going from 2 hours, 4 hours, 8 hours to so much innovation. I'm sure this week at the Trellis event, where you look at long duration storage. And in many places in the world right now, if you combine solar with batteries, you've got baseline.
You have microgrids like popping up.
That's right. It's basically crowding out fossil fuels. I think what most people don't know is when you compare the average price, they're both running 24/7. But if you take a gas plant and you have it running 8 hours and then 6 hours and then 4 hours, it's not economical. It can't work. So there's this flywheel that's happening. I think people don't understand that. Solar plus batteries and maybe a little wind, the winter, it's crowding out all the energy sources. In fact, I saw in California, which is not a small country, the fourth biggest economy in the world, in February, which is not summer, we went 52 hours without using any fossil fuels. That blew me away. It's not like in 20 years. It's like today, in the winter, we've probably gone beyond that. I haven't checked right now, but I think we're already seeing in major world economies basically move to solar and batteries and renewables. And so that is the future. And like people say, the future often happens in California. I think that's an instance of that happening. People just don't know.
So can you talk a little bit about that's where we're situated, and then what does it mean to have this particular technology? Like, how does this speed things up in that picture? Let's say in the next 5-10 years.
I think it does a couple of things. One is people are going to want more energy. I think that was probably
huge.
Another thing.
Well, the AI data center dominated the conversation there.
So there's that, and I don't think there's anybody who says, "Oh, AI is going to need less energy." Does that make sense? The other thing is human nature is that as human beings have something like as common as electricity, and the price goes down, they're going to want more of it.
Yeah.
So part of what's happening is solar is driving the price down, which means that people are going to want to consume more electricity. So all these forecasts that show it topping off, completely illogical. They make no sense to me. So if we did almost 700 megawatts last year, so gigawatts of solar, we're going to need many terawatts in the future. Part of what's interesting about perovskites is that it uses no rare metals, minerals, or mining. It basically uses a lot of off-the-shelf ingredients and package into our secret sauce. But the things that we're using are very abundant. So it's going to allow us to expand without having those constraints. And then there's another thing that people don't know is because we're making a tandem, that's why we named the company, we're leveraging off-the-shelf silicon. So we're not necessarily trying to replace it all.
So you're recycling?
So what we're doing is we're creating basically a solar panel sandwich.
Right.
If you think about what a solar panel is, you oversimplify. 2 pieces of glass, you have these silicon cells that we all know, and like glue. That's a solar panel. What we're doing in this factory is we're taking the top glass that you already need, coating the bottom of it, in a very sophisticated way, of course. And we're adding 2 grams to a full-size solar panel. Just to picture that a little bit, 2 grams would fit into one blueberry. That one blueberry's worth of chemicals adds 30, 40, 50% more.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about it that way, and we only use about 10% of the power watt per watt, because when you make a silicon panel, you have to really heat it up high and purify it. We don't need to do that. We're using more standard industrial processes. I think what people realize is this is better and cheaper, and now we're getting to the point where we can scale it. So it doesn't have to replace silicon so much as it can build on top of it. Sometimes I need to use the analogy of like a Prius.
Okay.
Prius can get rid of the gas engine. They have 2 engines together and combine that, get better. Eventually you go all electric, because there was a whole interim time where we had these Priuses.
Yeah.
That's why we're using silicon, because it works, it's established, and then we can complement and build on top of it. So we don't have to go head to head. We can actually complement and work with a lot of the silicon supply chain around the world and make it better.
And are there any problems with the silicon supply chain around the world? Because it's all like manufactured in the, is there any complication with that? This is manufactured in the US?
It's not technically, because we're basically agnostic. We can work with any silicon. It is a complicated world with tariffs, and there is some uncertainty there. But I think the good thing for us is because we're agnostic, we can rapidly adapt to whether we're using domestic silicon cells or international ones or some combination. And sometimes I use the analogy, we're going to go to customers and say, it's like a salad at a restaurant. You get your base salad. What do you want to add? You want to add tofu? You want to add salmon? You want to add steak? They can pick any combination of price points and performance. You don't really care.
Okay.
And then they just say, just like the salad, you pick what you want. We don't. We're different. We're just making the base salad or making the base.
Interesting. I wanted to ask you, I wanted to try and like understand or maybe create like a picture story. Like, so Dr. Lass about like the solar ink, you can paint it everywhere. So in my mind, I think about like, we're just painting the town with solar and it's getting energy. There's like a solar of things, like there's the Internet of Things. And maybe that vision is not quite correct, but how does this evolve out? Like in 10 years, what does that picture look like? Is this product mainly going to go to the utilities first? Does it ever go to homeowners? With this efficiency and durability, being able to manufacture here and bring the price down, what does that start to look like?
Well, first of all, I wish it was that simple. I think there was a demo from somebody at one of the national labs that used a spray paint gun.
Okay.
If only, like that made a great demo, but in some way it misled people. It's actually quite more complicated now to make a scalable, durable, manufacturable product. But what I would say is the industry goes in waves based on efficiency improvement. And we were at PERC for a long time. And that was between 19 and 22%. And then we went to TopCon. That was between 21 and 23%. The entire world moved for basically 1.5% to 2% change. The whole manufacturing processes. Perovskite tandems are adding like 7 to 10 to 12%. So based on that logic, it is inevitable that the world will move to 100% tandems. How long and how fast he does it, we'll see. But I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that the whole world is because of that logic. And then because of the superior economics, the different applications, because it's so thin, you're going to see perovskites everywhere. So you will see it in space. So there's all this talk about space data centers and satellites. Perovskites are actually, I've heard, 1,000 times better in terms of handling radiation than silicon. That's a huge technical advantage. They can be thin and light, and they're much more abundant and available than the gallium arsenide 3.5 that's out there today. So I think there's a robust future in space.
You've had interest from NASA, right? Like you've had discussions, and what is that discussion like? What are they talking about? Is it because of the radiation, like the nature of it?
Well, there's like a Goldilocks problem with space solar. So you have these 3.5 gallium arsenide that are very expensive. And there's not much manufacturing in the world. There's only 2 megawatts. Put that into the context of 700 gigawatts on the terrestrial side. So it's just not that much capacity. It's expensive, and it makes space too expensive to do all the stuff that people talk about. Then you have silicon, which is abundant, but it doesn't do very well in space. But it's what we have. So perovskites are a nice Goldilocks sweet spot where they're cheaper, much more available, put together in tandems. And I think for most people that we talk to, they're like, this is what we need. This is a sweet spot. So I think there's a really great opportunity to take over the space market. And then there's fun things like your sunroof in your car. Anchor had like a solar umbrella for the beaches. When you think about the applications, if it's cheap enough, you could put it on your clothes, or you'll find it. You'll put it on your hat. A whole bunch of other fun applications. And there's no end in sight that people want electricity.
So how would that work? Like how would you put it on clothes? Because it's still in tandem, though, right? Like it's.
You could do perovskite only.
Oh, you can do perovskite.
Yeah, there are some people who are doing flexible perovskites.
Okay.
That's not what we're doing today. We're putting it
Yeah.
on glass, but I think it's a great application to put it on flexible stuff, and then you could put it on anything.
Do you see your perovskites like at a certain point not necessarily needing to have the silicon? Is that where things evolve to?
Going back to the Prius analogy,
Yeah.
You move from the gas car to the hybrid.
Yep.
And then eventually you want to go electric. So in the future, I see having 2 or more layers of perovskites, but you don't need the silicon. That's also another way to drive the cost down even further. We're not doing it today because it's a hard enough technical challenge to get the top layer of perovskite working. There are other challenges with the bottom layer, actually part of the light spectrum. That's definitely, I think, part of our ambition eventually is to replace the silicon completely and go all perovskites.
And is it a chemistry problem or a physics problem? Like, what's the to get to that next level? Like, what science are you working?
I love that question because part of what attracted me to joining this is I don't like problems where there's like one thing to solve, because if there's one thing to solve, then everybody can do it. So when I looked at this, I said, this is really fascinating. This is a material science problem, it's a physics problem, it's a chemistry problem, it's a metallurgy problem. You need to know electrical engineering, you need to know mechanical engineering. I don't even know I'm leaving out, but and if you don't understand,
You need business.
you need some business people.
Right.
But if you don't have all that together, you really can't solve the problem. And so some people are like, what did Barry say? And like, you can't just have one smart person. You need a team. They need to integrate it together. You need to understand the problem in an interdisciplinary way. It's really hard, deep tech problem. And, it's why you can't do the 9 babies in 1 month. There are a lot of people trying to throw money at the problem, especially in China. It's not really working. It's too hard, which I like. I like it. It can't be impossible. We're not trying to mine asteroids, but it's pretty hard.
Somewhat technical. Just curious, like, what about like heat or questions? Because I know I was talking with somebody at Honeywell, and they were very much looking for things that can get really cold, like technologies and materials that can skin like the coldest space. That's something also from like a degradation, deterioration, perovskites. How do they work? Like if the planet heats up, super hot, it's super cold. How's the durability there?
Yeah, so there are these standard IEC tests where you have to cycle hundreds of times between minus 40 C and plus 85. It's probably about as hot as you get on planet Earth. We've been able to do that hundreds of times and pass it for the last 4 years. We just completed a third-party certification. We're able to do that. When you get up to space, it's actually a little bit wider and different problems with heat dissipation. But I think those are solvable engineering problems.
Yeah.
The other thing that's interesting about perovskites is that the temperature coefficient is actually about half of silicon. So what it means is as it heats up, silicon tends to degrade in its performance. Perovskite only degrades half as much, so it actually is better in hotter climates like desert and Phoenix.
Yeah, so interesting. So let's talk just a little bit about the AI data center. What's coming on? This is going to be like this tremendous need for energy. Some people are talking about, well, actually, what's happened with the current administration is inadvertently push things in a positive direction for renewables in a certain sense, and that also the drive to create like a sustainable data centers. How are you looking at that? Just like your big picture, how are you looking at that as somebody that's running this company?
I think I take a step back, and part of the reason why I joined this company is I did not want to join a company that could be sustainable only through the big races of environmentalists or green premium. I liked it because it could be competitive on its own. And I think what's happening in renewable energy is winning today. People are not buying it because there's like, oh, it's good for the environment. They're buying because it's available now and it's cheaper. I think that, and in the AI space, you have that additional element of they need it now. Like I can't wait until 2035. Who the hell knows what will happen in 2035 on the AI side? So I need power now. AI and batteries are standard things that can be quickly. Nuclear power plants are not. Gas plants take years to build. They're complicated big things if you've ever seen them.
Yep.
They're a monster. That's part of why this is winning is that it's cheaper, standard, it's modular. And we just add to, basically even we're building a solar panel that's going to be the same size. So even from an operations point of view, same trackers, same ability to install it. Like we're not trying to muck with anything. One of the things I've learned in my business career is anytime we try to change people's behavior, people don't like changing their behavior.
They don't.
So part of our drive and part of why we're selling to the utility scale is there's no behavior change. It's literally the same slot, same panels. They're just better. They just produce more power at a lower overall cost. I like that. That's part of why we chose this.
Do you see like Tandem PV contributing to meeting the needs of the day in terms of this massive rush for build out of these data centers, or are you like trying to catch up to that? or?
Well, I would say we won't have high volume. We won't have an high volume impact until 28. But our goal is to have gigawatt scale. It's one of the reasons why I think some of the advice was pick a niche, pick something small, like do calculators or whatever. From a values, first of all, there's a business point of view, the market's bigger. But from a values point of view, we want to make it our dent in the universe. So it just so happened that those two things lined up.
Yeah.
We want to go big scale and be one of the biggest companies in the world delivering solar. I know we're starting from a relatively small place, but every startup does.
I'm excited. I kept on telling my family, I'm like, you don't know this name, you don't know this term, but trust me, you're going to be saying this term. You're going to be learning about it in the future. So, it's like, is there anything that I'm not asking? Is there anything that you would like to convey in terms of what you're working on and what you're doing that you think we've not hit on? And I'm sure we could talk about lots and lots of different facets of this. But
we alluded to it earlier, but I think there is this idea, a couple ideas. One is Americans can't do manufacturing. That's just not true. We have a team I think that here is as good as any in the world at knowing how to do manufacturing. And say even in particular in Silicon Valley, we talk a lot about software, but there's actually an incredible deep bench of talent in science and manufacturing. I think it's a big competitive advantage. That's why you see a lot of the startups in solar being in this area. Next Power up the road, and a whole bunch of other solar companies that are here.
Yeah.
And then I would say, I think there is this perception that only China can do manufacturing. And they are geniuses and we're all stupid. I also think that's ridiculous. Like we can do this. Of course, they've done very well in certain areas, and I'm not taking anything away from them. They're very good. But they also tend to be very good if you look at the silicon side of taking 25 years doing very small but important manufacturing tweaks. Silicon Valley is good at doing breakthroughs. Perovskites, just because you're good at silicon gives you no advantage for perovskites. It's like a white sheet of paper. So if the incumbent won every time, we'd have no Silicon Valley venture community. So I think it's one of these examples I'd say to the naysayers. How are you going to win? Well, the incumbents sometimes win, but they often don't for cultural reasons, knowledge reasons, and I think we are showing that we are leapfrogging. Of course, early. I acknowledge that we won the race. No. But like I said, it's my fifth in a row. And what I've learned is every time I've done this, people say the incumbents will win, you don't have a chance, until we won. So I feel like we're in this. I feel like I'm watching this movie for the fifth time. They say the sequels aren't better, but
well, it's pretty fun because you how to do it, right? So you've done it, how to do it again. And,
yeah.
And I think we said on our last program, but I think for us, it's also super exciting to have somebody of your skill set working on these problems, right? Because it makes a big difference. Because we want like this in the world, and it's going to make like a huge to the planet.
And I think there's an advantage for the team is that we have people that have decades of experience in solar. And then you have people like me who now have 3 years, something. But I think having come out from other industries is a good thing out of that, because then you could take lessons that you apply in other parts of the world that might be obvious to people who've been in one industry for all the time. I like having teams that have a diversity of experience.
Yeah,
I think that's one of our.
You had more or less 60 employees. Tell us a little bit about your team. What are some of the highlights that make your team so special?
Well, I mean, we're pretty lean on the business side. Our head of commercialization that basically was doing venture capital for all the climate companies, helping them go through the bankability process. I was fortunate enough to recruit her to get her to come over here and do that. So she's basically signed up all these IPPs. We have a head of manufacturing that's our stereotypical requisite German, very precise, 20 years experience in solar manufacturing. Our co-founders, Colin and Chris, have 50 years experience in the space. Colin built the very first tandem at Stanford, getting his PhD. His life's mission. His birthday today.
Happy birthday.
And then Chris, having been like an OG of solar, working at NanoSolar, Applied Materials, other companies that are well known in the solar industry. So I think it's and then we have probably almost PhDs in all these different disciplines. So I think the barriers to entry, like you need the experience, you need PhDs, and you need money to build out factories like this. When you put it all together, I think it's going to get harder and harder for someone to jump in because you need a lot of money and experience. And,
right.
It's never impossible, but we're going to keep jumping ahead.
Yeah,
it's a very strong team. It's a fun team to work with, and part of what's proud for me is I actually didn't bring in over anybody role like the team. That was always a risk factor, but part of the fun is assembling the A team to go out and do it.